Hi, I'm Daniel Gold, and welcome to the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. By day, I'm a partner at a leading advisory firm where I draw upon my background as an attorney to help my clients succeed. This podcast, though, is my personal project, completely separate and apart from my day job, but reflects the same passion that I exhibit everywhere for teaching, mentoring, and helping others succeed through simple, impactful lessons. It is my hope that you'll walk away with practical takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. Thanks for being a part of this community and for joining me in the Leadership Lab. Let's get started. I want to ask you a question. How long can you sit in silence? No, I'm not talking about reading a book. I'm not talking about scrolling through a report on your laptop. I'm not talking about listening to a podcast while you fold laundry. I'm talking about doing nothing at all. Just sitting there. No input. No output. No agenda. Now let me push you further. You're sitting across the conference room table or even over a video with someone on your team. They just finished telling you something important, maybe something difficult, and the room goes quiet. How long can you sit in that silence without feeling compelled to jump in? Without rushing to fill what you might mistake for an awkward pause? Can you let it linger? Can you let it just hang there? How long can you go without checking your phone? Can you close every tab on your browser except the one that matters? Can you sit with your own thoughts long enough to actually hear them? Here's the thing. Most of us cannot. And the fact that we cannot, it is actually eroding our ability to lead. You know, all too often we treat silence like a luxury, like something that we earn after we've cleared our inbox or finished our project or wrapped up the quarter. When someone carves out time for stillness, for meditation, for doing nothing on purpose, there is this voice, that sometimes our own and sometimes it's someone else's, that whispers, "That's selfish." But I want to tell you all this because it's very important. It is not selfish. It is actually one of the most generous things that you can do for other people around you. Why? Because you cannot give clarity to others when your own mind is running 47 open tabs. Why else? Because you cannot hold space for someone else's thinking when your own thoughts are in some sort of pile up on the highway. You cannot bring calm into a room if you yourself have not found it first. And here's something that's really interesting. Did you know that nearly every major faith tradition has figured this out thousands of years ago? That's right. In Judaism, practitioners go completely offline for 25 hours every week. In Hinduism, annual observances are dedicated entirely to stillness and silence. And in Buddhism, monastic silence retreats have been practiced for centuries. Now, look, the specifics differ, but the prescription is nearly identical. Go quiet, go inward, and do it regularly. These traditions didn't build silence into their most sacred practices because it felt nice. No, they did it because they understood something fundamental about how human beings function. And neuroscience, interestingly enough, is catching up on what they've been knowing this entire time. So I want to talk about some of the science here because it's very, very interesting. There is actually a network in your brain that's called the default mode network. What does that mean? When you stop focusing on external tasks, when the noise drops and the inputs pause, that network activates. It handles self-reflection, memory consolidation, emotional processing, and future planning. It's where your brain takes scattered experiences and organizes them into some sort of coherent understanding. In other words, it's where your insight lives. And the most critical part of all this network cannot do its work while you are multitasking, while you are context switching, while you are checking notifications or filling silence with noise. It literally only activates when external stimulation drops, not before. It needs quiet to function. Now think about what that means for you as a leader. Think about your calendar. Back-to-back meetings, rapid-fire messages, constant context switching. Your brain never gets the chance to process what it is actually taking in. You're consuming information all day and consolidating none of it. Your mind is like running dozens of open tabs with notifications pinging, apps refreshing in the background, and you're wondering why everything feels just so slow and foggy. Now, the way to cure that? It's silence. It's the antidote. It's how you close those open tabs in your mind. It's how your brain reorganizes scattered information into something you can actually use. And it goes further than processing. There's actually a study that found that when 2-minute pauses of silence were inserted between periods of auditory stimulation, heart rate, blood pressure, and respiratory rate did not return to baseline. Nope, they dropped below baseline. What does that teach us? It teaches us that silence didn't merely stop the stress response, it produced a deeper state of physiological relaxation than the participants had before the study actually began. That's incredible. The science is clear. Silence lowers your heart rate. Silence reduces your stress hormones, and it lets your brain consolidate learning and process emotions. Every wisdom tradition on the planet encoded this into practice centuries before anyone had a brain scanner. They called it sacred. We are calling it neuroscience. So I want to go back to this image that I led with about the image of the conference room and sitting across from a team member. So look, maybe someone on your team just told you something, maybe a concern about a project, maybe a personal struggle, maybe an idea that they've been sitting on for weeks, and they finally worked up the courage to share it with you. They finish speaking, and the room goes quiet. And what do most leaders do? They jump in. They respond immediately. They offer a solution. They share a reaction. They fill the space with words. Why? Because silence feels like a vacuum. In that rush to respond, they communicate something that they've never intended. What is it? It's my reaction is more important than your thought. The leader who sits in the silence after someone finishes speaking, who lets the words land, who lets the words linger, gives the other person room to hear what they just said out loud. That leader communicates something profoundly different. It's that what you're saying matters enough for me to sit here with it, to process it, and to think about it. Now, I've talked before here on the Gold Standard Leadership Lab about the discipline of active listening. This is quieter, harder cousin of active listening, because active listening is about being fully present when someone speaks. The silence that follows is about being fully present after they stop. It's the space where the person across from you hears their own words reflected back by the quiet in the room, and sometimes adds the thing they were really trying to say. Most leaders interpret silence as a gap to be filled rather than a space to be protected. And when you rush to fill it, you signal that speed matters much, much more than depth. And when you hold it comfortably, you signal that thinking actually matters. And it does. And we all know it does. Thinking is hard, and thinking matters. And you signal that the room is safe enough for people to take their time. And that happens to also be psychological safety. And it's psychological safety that's been made visible. Not through a policy or a workshop, but through the simple, difficult act of not talking when everything in you wants to. And it wants to fill the gap and the void. And it extends beyond the two of you. Think about the best leaders you've worked with in a crisis situation. They didn't talk more. They didn't send more emails. They didn't call more meetings. They got quiet. They got steady. They brought stillness into a space that was spinning. And that stillness gave everyone else permission to stop spinning too. In other words, your calm doesn't just help you. It changes the room's nervous system. I meditate for 10 minutes, probably about 5 out of 7 days every single week. I don't tell you this because it's a humble brag. I tell you this because it's maintenance for me. Now, some days, honestly, it's easy, right? But even more honestly with you, some days my mind just races the entire time that I spend all 10 minutes chasing thoughts around like a dog chasing its tail. But more importantly, the practice isn't about achieving this perfect stillness. It's about creating the condition for it regularly enough, the consistency, that my brain learns to use the quiet. And that's literally why they call it the practice of meditation. But you don't need a meditation app or a silent retreat or a weekend. What I believe is every leader needs 3 minutes of breathing between meetings, 5 minutes of sitting quietly before your day starts, 60 seconds of staring out a window before you respond to that difficult email. Let me say this: the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your leading. What's more is that the quality of your thinking is directly tied to how much silence you allow into your life. Most leaders can't sit in silence because they're afraid of what they're going to find there. Silence strips away the noise that keeps us from confronting our own thoughts, the doubts, the unresolved decisions, the feedback we have not given, the changes we know we need to make but keep postponing. Busyness and noise are fantastic hiding places. They truly are. If you're busy, well, then you never have to sit with the hard stuff. Silence removes that alibi, and that's literally exactly why it matters. I can assure you that it is only through silence that we can truly hear. Not just ourselves, but everything around us. So here's my reflection and this week's challenge for all of you. This week, I'd like you to challenge yourself with 3 things. Number 1, how long can you actually sit in complete silence before reaching for your phone, a book, or some sort of input? Number 2, when was the last time you held space in a conversation by not responding immediately, and what happened as a result? And number 3, is your team comfortable with silence in meetings? Or does someone always rush to fill it? Now, finally, before your first meeting on this new week, I'd like you to sit for 3 minutes in silence. No phone, no laptop, no music. Just you and whatever your mind needs to process. And when someone finishes speaking to you, don't rush to fill the silence. Let it sit there. Let them hear what they just said, and let yourself hear it too. And at the end of the week, if you did all of this, I want you to notice whether the quality of your thinking and your presence in conversation has shifted. Because silence is not the absence of leadership. It is the foundation of it. And most of all, remember, leadership isn't about perfection. It is about progress. Take this lesson, put it into action, and continue setting the gold standard in your own life and at work. I'll see you all next time.